Hello and welcome to another episode of TUPE Talk. I'm John Hirsch. I'm the Redwood High School site coordinator for the TUPE program. For those of you who are new to it, that's tobacco use prevention education, but we focus on multiple aspects of substance abuse prevention education, tobacco, but also electronic nicotine delivery systems, smokeless tobacco and smokeless nicotine delivery systems. And I am here today. Our guest of honor is Jessica Colvin, who is our wellness director for the Tamalpais Union High School District, and I'm going to give her a chance to share a little bit more about what she does, and we're going to talk about what we can do, and with her expertise, how we can bring together multiple stakeholders in our school environment, our district environment, to really maximize the effect that we can have on our students. So Jessica, welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, thank you. Hi, I'm Jessica Colvin, and I've been the TUHSD Wellness Director. This is my 8th year. I was brought on to the district to start wellness centers at our high school campuses, which I'm thrilled to say has happened, and I continue to supervise and direct and vision for those wellness centers. And another one of my roles has become to be the district TUPE coordinator. So I oversee our larger TUPE grants that are connected to the Marin County Office of Ed, and then as of 2 years ago, we wrote a grant for a TUPE Health Disparities grant that we were awarded, and I've been overseeing that as well. I also work to support our TUPE site coordinators on each site.
Thanks, Jessica. So that's a lot of different stuff, and I think people are probably watching this and already thinking about how does that apply to me, right? And you know, for other schools in our district that have wellness centers, and I think maybe some other schools around the region that are starting to think about that kind of thing, where do you see the overlap between the work that TUPE does and your broader goal of student wellness and our wellness centers?
Good question. So there's so much overlap. I would say that one of my priorities for our district is that the wellness centers do not just provide intervention, but also provide education and prevention. And I think TUPE does a great job of focusing on prevention, education around prevention and intervention. So right away, the program really aligned with our values of supporting Tier 1 interventions in schools. Also, TUPE provides Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions in schools. So students can get education if they've been caught on campus using substances. They can work with one of our counselors who can provide cessation services and motivational interviewing and resources around tobacco and vaping cessation. We have kind of come together in all different ways. Another great thing is that in this education, we've come up with really creative ways to get the word out to students. So we have an Instagram handle at all of our wellness centers. We partner with the TUPE students and put information out to all students. We have a district wellness website that has a whole section on tobacco and vaping. We do staff education. At the beginning of each year, we offer a staff professional development about tobacco and vaping. And then we also offer something for parents and caregivers.
Thank you. Again, so much there to unpack. And the main takeaway that I have listening to what you're saying as a site coordinator, as someone who's a little bit more tunnel visioned on a specific task, is that there's a lot of potential for me to ally with other people in the Tamalpais Union High School District. As you know, I have, right? You know, we've worked together. I work with Jennifer Kennybaum and Magdalena McGuire in the Redwood Wellness Center, but what ideas or what kinds of, maybe for lack of a better term, advice do you have for a TUPE site coordinator, you know, at another school, maybe that doesn't exactly have a wellness center, for where they can seek out allies on campus?
Another great question. So I think, you know, becoming a TUPE site coordinator, I think one of the first things to do is to assess what resources do exist on campus and where the holes are. So who are your school counselors? Who's your school psychologist? What kind of, talking to your assistant principals about how students who are caught or in possession of tobacco and vaping products are, how those situations are handled. Getting all the information that you can gather at the beginning is key. Also figuring out who's teaching about tobacco and vaping prevention in the classroom. Those are your allies. and not reinventing the wheel. So giving them resources, sharing information, supporting them in their work, but not adding work to their load and not to yours. A lot of things are probably happening. Don't start doing something new until you figure out that it's not already being done. And then offering your support and your expertise to all of those folks, I think is critical to ensure that TUPE becomes a school-wide effort.
That's outstanding. Thank you so much for that. I think that, finding that low-hanging fruit, making sure I use the phrase, I think, not reinventing the wheel. And I think that's so important because as a TUPE coordinator, as a site coordinator, my time is so constrained, right? I've so many things that I want to do, and realizing that, okay, well, these people are already doing this, those people are already doing that. Okay, so I'm going to focus my effort here instead. That's been really, really helpful for me. I'm sure it's been helpful for other coordinators too in our district, knowing they're not in it alone. What kinds of specific collaborations have you seen over your long tenure in this field as being the most impactful or the most meaningful, or just great examples of things that other site coordinators might think about? And that can obviously predate your time in the Tamalpais Union High School District. I know you did this work for a long time in San Francisco too.
Yeah, so I think coming together to share information to students, to staff, and parents and caregivers, and not all of us have to be the experts. So sharing expertise and unifying around messaging and communication, I think, is critical. Being really creative. So we don't want we do want students to all have the same level of education and knowledge. So we want to make sure that that's in place, but we want to get creative each year. So we don't want to have the same campaigns happening every year. We've gotten so creative that we've done Escape the Vape campaigns. We've done Big Tobacco Power and Profits campaign. We did a whole thing about Juuls and their environmental impact. There's all kinds of ways that you can expand this work, and we don't want to do the exact same teaching and learning and campaigning every year. And I would say the most important thing is going to the students. They know what's going on the ground. They know the changing trends. I was just getting ready to send an email out to our district about tobacco and vaping to actually our parents and caregivers, and it was written 2 years ago, and it was saying that Juul was the #1 device. That's not the case anymore.
Right.
So you have to be read very carefully and keep current. And not you could become the person who shares that information on a regular basis. And you are getting information, if you can ever have opportunities to get information from students, that they are our best educators. So sharing that information in coordinated ways is ideal.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. The students have been so meaningful and impactful in terms of informing me. For example, I remember, I think it was at the beginning of this year, that one of my peer educators made a point of sharing with me, hey, Mr. Hirsch, have you heard about flumes? Have you heard about these new devices? Because as you said, it was Juuls and then it was puff bars, and now we're seeing more flumes, and starting to learn more about that, and then collaborating with the people, I think it was at Stanford, who did the measurements of the amount of nicotine in a flume, and being able to use that information and then get that out to people. I had a meeting with a student just the other day, a cessation meeting, who was blown away by the amount of nicotine in a flume, and it motivated her to make a choice to quit. And so, just seeing how that information can all come together, and I wouldn't have been able to do that if our wellness center hadn't been so supportive in guiding those students to me, and it really does become a very synergistic thing. And I think it reminds me of a conversation that we were having a few days ago about harm reduction and what that means. And I think what I want to do to kind of finish this up is just see what are the overlapping goals, messages, such as harm reduction, that you see among the different stakeholders in a campus or district environment that really can help us to collaborate with the same kinds of end goals in mind.
Yeah. Here's what I would say. Our work as TUPE coordinators needs to be all-inclusive. So that means we need to be educating and working with students who are abstinent, who have never used vaping or nicotine. We want to keep them abstinent. We need to have education available to those who are experimenting, to those who are using recreationally, to those who are using habitually or addicted. We need to be all inclusive. We don't want our messages to only go to the students who are fully addicted or only to the students who are abstinent. We want to think, and it makes our jobs harder, right? It's always easier to just pick one group of students. It's really important to me, and I know to the TUPE site coordinators and the wellness centers, that our education meets the needs of all students, that any student who hears our education or sees a campaign can relate it to their experience. We don't want them to feel judged. We don't want them to feel shamed. We want them to feel like, oh, there is a resource for me, and I have a place to get more information and to get support if I need. So that would be my biggest message, is ensuring that your programs, campaigns, education is all inclusive, to include all students and meeting them where they're at to ultimately reduce harm and keep our students safe.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I think it really comes down to that idea, let's keep the conversation going with as many people as we can, right? Thank you so much for your
You're so
time,
welcome.
Jessica. Anything you want to add before we get out of here?
Thanks for the amazing work you're doing. It's making a difference.
Thanks a lot. Have a good day, everyone.